Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Open to Export webinar about how you can plan for and succeed at international trade shows. My name is William Barnes-Graham, and I am the Senior Content Editor at the Institute of Export and International Trade. Next, please. Open to Export is a free online service helping small businesses get ready to sell overseas through our step-by-step articles and guides, regular webinars, our Export Action Plan tool, and our quarterly competitions. You can find out more about all of these offerings on our website at www.opentoexport.com. Next, please. Open to Export is powered by the Institute of Export and International Trade, the UK's professional membership body for traders. Endorsed by the World Trade Organization and the International Chamber of Commerce as a small business champion, we offer a unique range of individual and business membership benefits, education and training catering for beginners through to master's degrees, and an always exciting and prestigious programme of events celebrating UK businesses' exporting achievements. Next, please. We will be running a live Q&A later in the session, and you can ask questions at any point using the question box on the control panel to the right-hand side of your screen. The general principle here is that we'll try to ask questions that are relevant to the broader audience, so you won't be able to go into company specifics as such. But if you do have specific questions, we can always refer you to our technical helpline afterwards. Next, please. We're delighted to have John Reed leading today's presentation. John is a vastly experienced export consultant, and he also does a lot of work with the Institute of Exports as a trainer and a tutor. So a real great expert on this topic, and I'm very glad to hand over to you, John.
Thank you very much, Will. Thank you for your kind introduction. Rob, can I have the first slide, please? Making the most of international trade shows. Like most people who've been in international trade for a very long time, mine spans about 35 years, I think. I've made plenty of mistakes going to trade shows, but I've learned from them. And so hopefully what I'll be doing during this session is giving you some hints and tips on how you can avoid some of the mistakes that I and many, many other people have made as they've tried to get their products into international markets through this medium. Next slide, please. So 35 years selling internationally. Half of that was with companies I was employed by, and it covers North America into India, all across Europe and Scandinavia, into Southeast Asia as well. So I've got a very broad experience in terms of the countries I've visited. I've been training in international trade since 2002, probably a little bit before that. And with my own business in the last 17 years, I've covered most industry sectors, helping businesses to prepare for their international trade journey. Most of all, and I will repeat it again, I've made the kind of mistakes that everybody makes when they move into new territory for the first time. Next slide, please. So the first fundamental when you're looking at doing an international trade show is to have a reason to go. Please don't believe the exhibition organizers who will fill you full of statistics of how wonderful their trade show is and how you must be there every year or two, otherwise people will think you've gone out of business. It's complete tat, and therefore you should have in your mind all the time that it's your show. Whatever you do in business, it's your show. It's nobody else's, it's yours. If something doesn't work for you, you don't do it. So what are the reasons why you would want to exhibit at an overseas exhibition? First of all, you might have new products, new to the market, new to your company, new to the world. They might be completely new products, in which case you have a very good reason to go and exhibit them. If you're entering a new market, it's one of the considerations, what are the trade shows that I should be looking to exhibit at, but we'll come back to that. Is there government funding? Has the Chambers of Commerce or have the DIT contacted me to say, we have a pot of funding for you to exhibit in, for example, Brazil? If that's the case, then it might just twist your arm to go along and set up a small stand. It may be a key industry event where all your competitors are there, all the likely customers are going to be there, and there are seminars and a range of activities that are important for you to not just be aware of, but to be there in attendance at. It may be to cover festivals and events. I remember many years ago when Manchester hosted the 2002 Commonwealth Games, there was a very, very successful business club that was set up around the games, and there were one or two exhibitions in Manchester at that time that were highly regarded. You may also be invited by an industry body or another body to be part of a trade show. But most of all, everything has to fit in with your plan. And I'll come on to the plan in future slides. Next slide, please. This graphic is a very simple graphic, but it shows that not just with trade shows, with any event that you take part in internationally or really even in the domestic market, 60% is in the preparation. If your preparation's are right, your show is going to be good and you will have much less work to do on the follow-up. I'll talk about what you do by way of preparation in a little while. But just remember that trade shows, like any event, are part of a process. They're not the process itself. You go along to a trade show expecting people to turn up and come along to your stand. That is completely naive. You have to make sure that you make the best of the 3, 4, up to 6, 7 days that you might be at the show. And so these slides will hopefully help you to move in that direction. Next slide, please. It's always, because trade shows can cost tens of thousands of pounds to put on, it's always very useful to visit a show before you decide to exhibit, to see the lie of the land, to see how good the organisation is, the quality of the booths, the quality of the transport, and all the other things that are peripheral to the show itself. But take a look at the focus that the shows have. Your organisers will contact you saying that this is a truly international show. I've heard that more times than I care to remember and arrived to find that actually it's a very regionally focused show. So if it's an international show, you'd be looking at something like the Domotex Carpet Fair, which is held in Germany, in Hanover every year, and they have a sister show over in Shanghai. They are genuinely international shows. The International Woodworking Federation Fair in Atlanta every year, held in July, is an international show. You can tell by looking at the visitors, the visitor profile, where they come from. I've been at many shows where the split between east and west has been evident, north and south. So it depends on where your customer base is or where you want your customer base to be as to which shows you should target. I was at the Batimat exhibition in 1999. Gosh, that's going back a bit. But we went along to that show, and it was a very, very French and Latin oriented visitor profile. It didn't really suit. It was a successful show for us, but it could have been better because it didn't really suit the markets we were targeting at the time. We went to the Domotex fair and it was more Germanic and US, which did. So that tells a story in itself. So check what the reach of the show is, the genuine reach, not what the show organizers tell you. You can find a lot out from their websites that will give you those indications. In the UK, you'll hear about a lot of international shows, all based in Birmingham or London, really. In my experience, very few of them are truly international. And so do be careful about it. Some of them are just for the domestic market. Some of them will attract international visitors, and that's very different from being an international trade show. the focus may be an industry focused, or it might target a certain market segment, such as healthcare or hotel and restaurant or something like that. If that is part of your market, then that's a consideration too. Next slide, please. Be sure about what to expect. This is key, really, because in the major exhibition cities where the cities are used to exhibition traffic, exhibition visitors, the hotels will be organized, the shuttles will be organized, the transport will be organized, the show organization will be excellent. I'll give you one example, though, that cuts across that view. I went to Atlanta to do the International Woodworking Fair in about 2001, I think it would have been, and we took across 4 one-ton machines. And we arrived there having contracted a third-party contractor to not only deliver the machines, but to set them up on the stand. And we arrived there the day before, halfway through the day before, to find that the machines were on the stand, but they were still in their wooden crates. And we had no tools with us or anything. And it was part of the contract, and we ended up having a legal battle with the third-party contractors. But it was also 90 degrees in that hall, no air conditioning until the first day of the exhibition. And so it was a very, very hot 10 hours that it took me and one other person to get our exhibition fit for the following day. So it can happen in the best places, but it's less likely to happen in places like Atlanta, places like Hanover, which I mentioned, Shanghai as well. The organization is normally first class. In the lesser known exhibition cities, might be the middle of Poland, it might be Greensboro in North Carolina, or a city that isn't regularly taking major exhibition traffic, then you may find that some of those services and the facilities are less good, which means that you've just got to plan more. So rather than being 25 miles out at the nearest hotel with only the car to take you from the hotel to the exhibition site, make sure that you do your homework. And for all of these reasons, there is no trade show in the world that doesn't take about 6 months to put into planning. I know that sounds an awful long time, but 6 months passes very, very quickly. And with all the other tasks that you've got to do in your life, 6 months passes extremely quickly. There are actually few really major differences because we live in a very connected world, and most things are available in most places. But just be aware that the major exhibition cities are used to putting on trade shows. The lesser known exhibition cities, you may find there are 1 or 2 hiccups along the way. Next slide, please. It's absolutely vital that you prepare well in advance for your exhibition. You might want a stand designed, for example, and that's not going to happen overnight because you'll probably have a third-party company coming in to do that. You may have to tender out that design to several, and that whole process can take 2 months in itself. So once you've accepted a design and then the stand has to be built and tried out, that can take another 2 months. So you're very close to your exhibition time itself if you take those 4 months into account. So make sure that all exhibitions and all international events, all visits, all trade missions, anything that you do is part of your business plan. It has to be, because it has to be costed and your board has to approve it, presumably. So make sure the plan's good. And if you can't afford to do 10 exhibitions a year, mix it. Go to 5, visit 5 and exhibit another 5, because that way you can still meet all of your agents and distributors from certain regions in one place. And that's a very, very powerful reason for not exhibiting if you don't have anything new to say. You can still go to the exhibition, you can still make use of that space without actually having an exhibition booth. Make sure also that your communication is first class, because 6 months down the line, bear in mind that all of your customers are planning their businesses for 6 months down the line. They may not be available when you want them to attend your trade show. So the sooner you get to them to tell them that I am exhibiting in your city in November this year, the sooner you can tell them that, the more likely it is that they will come along and attend and reserve space for you. Communication is vital. It's not just about a single email saying, guess what, we're coming to Hanover in January. It's about constantly giving people a reason to come along and visit you at the stand. We are providing these new products. We are looking for new agents and distributors. We have a need for a research and development lab in your city. We're looking for technicians. It can be a whole range of different things. But most importantly, in all of this, invite your customers, invite your potential customers, invite the media, invite anybody who can influence your progress and your speedy progress, especially into a new market. It's also really important to give them time. If they are going to come and visit you and take time out of their busy working schedules to come and see you, give them at least 30 minutes. I would say actually a maximum of 30 minutes because you've got a lot of people to see if you've done this right. If you've invited everybody you want to do, then give everybody up to 30 minutes. I did this once in a 6-day exhibition in Hanover, and I only missed 2.5 hours. The rest were filled. And that not only included the exhibition time, which was 9 till 6, it included breakfast meetings, evening meetings, and there was only 2.5 hours that I wasn't speaking to a customer, which in itself creates problems. I'll come on to that later. Next slide, please. It's also really important to have some kind of a strategy for how you're going to approach the show. And what's the scale of the show? Again, back to, is it international? Is it a huge exhibition with 10 different halls, or is it one that's all condensed into one hall? Do you need your own full stand? Can you share a stand with either a complementary supplier? We did this successfully on a number of occasions where we supplied the flooring material for a company that made office furniture. And we were able to be on their stand with our material saying, look at this floor, isn't it wonderful? And that worked quite well because they were passing us customers and we were passing them customers. That can work. Is it going to involve the local agent, distributor, representative, or whatever? There was one of the questions that came through actually, which I'll tackle now. And that was, how would you trust your local agent or distributor? How far should you trust them in manning your own booth? And the simple answer to that, and it's very glib, but it is simple, is if you've not got the right agent and distributor, you shouldn't trust them. If you've appointed the right person in the first place, then why wouldn't you? And it opens a wider question of the management of agents and distributors, which I'm not going to go into now because we haven't got the time, but you will find some useful pointers on previous webinars that Open to Export have staged in the last couple of years. Do you go to the expense of planning your own stand to make it fit with your company brand, or do you go for a shell scheme? Do you visit the exhibition or do you exhibit there? The costs of exhibiting are huge. So you have to make sure that you're exhibiting in the right place for it to be cost effective and for you to know that you're going to be able to put some figures on a return on that investment in 1-2 years' time. How are you going to present yourself at the exhibition? Are you going to have a loop on video? Are you going to be part of the expert talks in the seminar rooms? Are you going to go to the Meet the Buyer events, or are you going to attract somebody from the Meet the Buyer events into your stand? Are you going to work with the local chambers of commerce, the local posts, if you like, the embassies and consulates to help drive people to your stand? Are you going to stage product demonstrations? All these things you have to consider. Next slide, please. Most of the major exhibitions are quite accustomed to the big competitors, the big companies rebooking space almost before they've attended this year's exhibition. And that's one of the reasons that they tell you if you don't turn up, then people will think you've gone out of business. The exhibition organizers always want the big people there because they are what pull the crowds. But they also book the best space. So the earlier you book your exhibition space, the better. If you're booking in the month of the exhibition, you're going to be out in the sticks somewhere. You're going to be on probably a side away from the throughput of traffic. You may be in an upstairs room where nobody goes. So please, part of the reason for booking 6 months ahead, a year ahead, is to get the best location. Make sure you're in a relevant section of the show. If you're selling carpets, don't be in the wood floor section. It's pointless because people aren't going there for carpets. It's quite simple. I've always liked to be across the way from our biggest competition, not just because I want to smile at them and annoy them from time to time and take their customers, but actually because their customers come to you. If you're right opposite your biggest competitor with something really eye-catching and new that your customer wants, they're going to come over and see you. So that's an important consideration as well. I've always got on really well with our competition because we're all in the same business. We've had many drinks together and all this kind of thing without giving our trade secrets away. So it's perfectly easy to coexist. Try and book yourself near to trade media booths because they will drive people in your direction as well, and have a relationship with the trade media people. International trade, business generally, is all about the relationships you have with people who can bring people towards you. And that is what you should be doing. Try and book corner booths for no other reason that you've got two directions at least for people to come at you from. Try not to be too near the cafes, because if you're too near the cafes, your chairs and tables get used by people drinking coffee, not buying from you. It's useful to be quite near them, but not directly opposite. It's handy, but not essential that you should be close to an entrance, because what do you do when you walk into an exhibition booth, exhibition space? You walk straight in and you either turn right or left or go straight on. So you want to be in one of those three locations, quite close to where people are walking in. There is also very often an unplanned, unwritten direction of flow. If you look at UK exhibitions, I've been to many of these and I've exhibited at many, you tend to find that people come in and turn left. I don't know why, but they do, they turn left. So have a look at whether that is likely to be the case. And when you're visiting an exhibition, you can see this. You walk in and follow the flow and you'll find out where people go and why they turn right rather than left. It might be they turn right because that's where the cafe is. It might be they turn right because that's where a major company is they want to see. Or it might be that they just have a system where they want to walk in and get around everybody within a very fixed period of time. Also, it's useful to sometimes be part of the British Pavilion, as I was once over in Istanbul. It was a very useful and cost-effective way of having a presence in the market without spending a huge amount of money. Next slide, please. Your booth is really important. I'm not going to go through everything on here because there really is a lot in these bullet points, but these are all bullet points for you to think about. Enquiry systems. Be very careful of automatic barcoded enquiry systems. It's fine if the barcoding works correctly and if the data put in that enables that barcode to have been produced in the first place is correct. I did an exhibition once and I analysed the barcoding and found that 32% of the addresses and contacts were erroneous. So when you have somebody on your stand, don't say to them, take their business card by all means, but get them to give you their information directly. And if they don't want to do that, then obviously you have to go via the barcode reader. But it's very useful to sit down with them and take notes if you can spare the time to do that. Train all of your staff. All of your staff will have different reasons for being there. You'll have the salespeople. That's easy. Salespeople should know what they're doing. They should know the products. They should know the markets. They should know the people and the contacts in the markets. Train your technical people on how to deal with overseas customers because they won't always know. One of the biggest pluses I've found in staging an international exhibition is to employ the services of a translator or interpreter. One example comes from Ligna Show in 1995, where I employed a German-American lady because we were in Germany. And we had a lot of American visitors to the show. But this lady spoke fluent German and she arrived the day before and she said, "Can you tell me about these machines?" So I told her about those machines, and the following day she was holding people who didn't speak my language because she knew enough about the machines to hold them. So train your interpreters, give them a briefing. There are all kinds of things you can do on a booth to attract customers, but you've got to be careful that you don't attract the wrong sort. We put a great big pillar up, a really beautifully designed pillar in one of the shows we did many years ago. And it was a great meeting point for everybody because people said, let's meet at that weird thing over there, that massive tall tower. But we didn't get people meeting there for our stand. We got people meeting there because it was a useful place to meet. So be careful. Also check who's opposite you at the exhibition, because if there are a lot of live demonstrations going with microphones, then your business may be interrupted by loud noises from elsewhere. If you have a video loop going, just don't leave it running at the front of your stand for people to come and look at. Have an area on your stand where people can walk in, and as they're looking at the video, your staff can ask them questions. And finally, always have somebody who can direct the traffic. And what I mean by that is you might want to take a junior member of staff whose sole reason for being there is to hold people until the right person becomes available, to book appointments, to give out brochures to people who are interested in brochures, and so on. Samples and sample folders. If you've made expensive sample folders, it is useful for as many people to have them as possible, but you also get a lot of people just collecting them for the sake of it. Some of them collect to copy, so you've got to be careful about that too. I was on a stand once and I stopped some students from taking some of our sample brochures, and my boss at the time said, "Don't do that. In 10 years' time, they're going to be decision makers," which was very forward thinking, and he was right. Because in international trade, nothing happens overnight. It can take 5 years between you meeting somebody at an exhibition and they're placing their first order. You just have to keep the communication going. Next slide, please. I'm aware that we're getting close to time, but we're not too far away now. A couple of really key things about presentation on the stand. Your staff, your sales staff especially, should stand and not sit. I know that's going to be very unpalatable, but do not sit down because it shows a lack of interest in the people walking past. Even if it's quiet, stand there and be there ready to do business. Dress for the market. Most people go to exhibitions and they're dressed in suits, they dress smartly, and that's normal. But sometimes if you're doing a flooring exhibition where there's a lot of installation going on, then it might be that you attract a different type of customer if you have a few people dressed in polo shirts who are clearly part of the brand, the design of the stand, and so on. We did that with one exhibition where we wanted to attract installers, and so we just went in polo shirts, and we attracted a lot of installers. Job done, successful exhibition. Also think about any staff that you need to support you. We had a problem in Turkey once where we'd fitted a massive, great site for Turkcell, which is 10 times bigger than BT, just to give you an example of the scale. And we'd fitted this site out, and the installers had fitted them incorrectly, even though we'd put installation instructions in every single box, but they'd fitted them incorrectly. So from that point on, we decided, well, yes, it was their fault, but this time we're going to go back prepared. And we went back to an exhibition. We took the best UK carpet fitter across to Istanbul, and they were training installers on the stand to fit the stand during the exhibition. It was hugely powerful, and that's the reason we did so well in Turkey. Moving on, please. Make the most of your time. You know, here we are sat there in a restaurant with some wonderful people in Macedonia. They were great people. But as part of the exhibition, it's important to show the human side of who you are. Your key customers, your key suppliers, your key contacts in the market, get them around a table and have a meal with them. Whether it's at breakfast or in the evening, use your time while you're there. I know you're going to be tired, but that's the deal. Make sure you're in control at all times, because it's your show, not anybody else's, and you're there to do business. Therefore, if you take somebody for a meal, you've got to have an objective for doing that, however harsh that may sound. It's also useful to have an event in an adjacent hotel. We did this on a number of occasions where 30 plus of our worldwide distributors used to come into the same room. They'd been to the exhibition during the day, and then they came to meet us in the evening, have drinks with us, and all the distributors got talking to each other. That created business between them, and it created more business for us because it was a big, happy family. And that didn't happen overnight. That took 5 years for me to establish. But it happens if you engage with people. Moving on to the next slide, please. Take the right people. Don't take anybody who's going to be out of their depth. They're going to have to deal in some of these exhibitions. They get very, very busy, and you will not get your lunch. You'll plan for lunch at 1 o'clock. You won't get it till 5 o'clock. And that will be the case for everybody, because lunchtime is often the most difficult period, because everybody is in, that's when everybody's arrived at the exhibition hall. So you need to be able to handle the throughput of customers. And that means that you've got to think about the size of your exhibition site, the size and nature of your booth, whether it's one that people can walk through. Is that a good idea? Because you don't really want people walking through it. You want people walking into it, speaking to people, and walking out of it again. So take care with the design of your booth. Do you have an office? Do you not have an office? My view is that you should not have a closed office, because once you get a customer in there, it's very, very difficult to politely remove them in 30 minutes. So have a kind of open office where people can see that you're busy. I had a stand once, and it was in the carpet trade at one of the Domatex shows, and we had a member of staff inviting people into the stand, or having made the appointments, or they were booking the people with the appointments in at particular times. And my office was raised above the rest of the stand, so people had to walk upstairs to be in meetings with me. And every 30 minutes, one group of people walked down the stairs and the next group of people walked up the stairs. That was a really handy way of making sure that I gave them the full attention. Have the right people talking to the right people. If it's a technical issue, have a technician talk to the people. If it's a sales issue where somebody's come along to say, I love your products, I'd like to represent them exclusively, then first of all say no to exclusivity, and secondly, engage with them and find out how good they are, why they're interested, and what they can do for you. One of the most important and crucial things that you must never do at an exhibition, and everybody does this, it's wrong, is to take a stand down before the exhibition closes. And I'm not saying that for the benefit of the exhibitors, I'm saying that for the benefit of you guys. I was at a Ligna exhibition, one of the many I went to in Germany, and it's a 6-day exhibition. And on the 6th day at 4:30, the guys around me started taking the stand down. I was with a couple of Malaysian customers. It didn't look great. I sold £50,000 worth of machinery to those Malaysian customers, but it was downright embarrassing and disrespectful to those customers to take that stand down around them. Some of the people who come late to your exhibition stand come for a reason, and that's because they want a deal. So don't take your stand down early. Very simple. Be wary of third-party stand builders. I talked about that earlier. It's really important that you have it properly contracted so that if there is a legal case to answer, then your body of evidence is secure. Moving on, please. Look at the costs. Without going into the detail, you've got a lot of costs when it comes to staging an exhibition. Again, it's not just the exhibition that costs, it's all the preparation that costs, all the marketing material, the time that people spend on preparing for the exhibition, the documentation like the ATA carnets that you're going to have to pay for to make sure that if your machine goes out to the market overseas, it can come back again without incurring customs duties and so on. And it's also, if you spend a week away at an exhibition, you're not doing your normal business. So this is a huge, huge cost, and it therefore needs careful thought. Moving on, please. And these are just a couple of links where you can find out where the major trade shows are around the world. They're not definitive in any way, but they do give you a good indication of where the exhibition cities are, what kind of exhibitions are out there, and so on. Thank you for listening. I know that some of you will have questions. I'm very happy to take them. I'm just going to hand back now to Will.
Thank you so much, John. That was a great presentation, and also great to hear about so many of your experiences as well. So lots of really useful information there. Just before we go on to the Q&A, I'm just going to launch a quick poll to see how many people are actually looking at attending trade shows over the next 12 months. And while this is going on, please do feel free to put your questions into us. So I'm just going to launch this poll now. So the question is, are you currently planning to attend a trade show in the next 12 months? I'll leave that for a few seconds. And yeah, just a reminder that you can ask questions using the control panel to the right-hand side of your screen. And we've got a good 10-15 minutes, so please do feel free to do that. Okay, I'm going to close the poll now and showing the results. Quite a lot of you are, so it's just as well. A fair few of you are attending this webinar today. Hopefully it's been useful for that show you're going to be going to. And for those who aren't planning on one at the moment, hopefully this will give you a sense of what's involved should you want to go to one in the future. Right, so moving on to the questions. The first question we've had in is from Joanne, and it's a really important point, I guess, for many of the SMEs on the line today. So she's asked, given we have a limited budget, would you recommend going to fewer trade shows and making a big splash of them, or a more modest approach at a greater number of shows? What do you reckon, John?
I think it's a really good question, Joanne. It depends largely on your market sector, your customers, a whole range of different things. And that's not a glib way of saying I can't really answer the question. It really does depend on those things. If you are limited on budget, then Firstly, try what I suggested in the outset. Make sure somebody flies over to the show. It'll cost you £500 to go and see a European show, for example. Fly over for a couple of days, have a look at what the trade show is all about, make some connections, plan your visit, and talk to people while you're there, meet people that you've communicated with in advance, and then come back and make the decision after that. In all likelihood, if it's one of your industry events, you'll be quite impressed and you'll want to exhibit there. But having gone there, you'll be able to see what the quality of the shelf schemes are like, what the quality of the stands are like, what all the other facilities are like for you, your customers, your staff, and so on. So that is the first point. The second point is that if I were going to 20 exhibitions in a year, I'd probably not have survived to the age of 61. So I think it's really important to pick and choose your exhibitions. You will know which they are. The main exhibitions for your business are always the ones that are held in the main centres. Unless it's a specific industry show and your business is a real niche business, then you're more likely to be at the big exhibition cities, wherever they are in the world, than you are stuck out in the sticks in the middle of a country you don't know very well. So those 2 points, I would say, are very important. I hope that's of some guidance. If not, please feel free to send an email through to Will and we'll elaborate a little bit more.
Absolutely. As John says, feel free if you want any further follow-up to email admin@opentexport.com and we can see what we can do. A question we've had in from Andrew regarding kind of how much to have on the stand. So he said, historically, they've always taken lots of equipment to display, but his view now is that less is more. Kind of what view do you have on that yourself, John?
If I was making guitars, I'd want every guitar on the wall that I could possibly have because it looks fantastic apart from anything else. If I was presenting a new machine, I would have that machine on stand and I'd have videos of the rest. So it does vary again according to the market, but I know what Andrew's saying. It's a good point because it's one that we've had to deal with in the past. When I shipped those 4 machines over to the States, that was a heck of a job. And in retrospect, I only really needed to take the one machine that everybody wanted to look at. So I could have saved myself a lot of angst by just being sensible. It's like anything, you want an exhibition is a showcase, and a brochure is a showcase for you. Some people prefer to show all their products in one place, which confuses the customer. Some people like to show their best products. And then when the customer starts to talk about their best products, they also ask about other products because they're well exhibited around the stand. So it's a skill, but it's a good point that Andrew's made. I would tend to err on the side of less is more.
Great, thank you. Thank you, John. A question we've had in from Norhan, and I think the question is basically asking, so he's targeting a specific new market, and he's asking, would it be better to participate in shows in that specific market, even if it's a small one, or to attend a more major event, which may be more regional, so that you can reach more customers? How do you kind of evaluate that?
That's a really interesting one. I've done both. And the answer to the question is that the regional exhibitions always give you more. The smaller exhibitions, because they are small, they attract a much more focused group of companies. And go back to what I said earlier. Everybody who comes to your exhibition is taking time out of their own business to come to that exhibition. So if it's of reasonable value to them, they're likely to go. If it's of great value to them, they will definitely go. If it's of peripheral value to them, you may not see them. And I've stood at exhibitions where I've stood there for 3 days and I've had 2 customers. That's terrible. That should never happen. And that was an exhibition, by the way, that I planned. But it was in the wrong location, and it's what you learn as you go along. So in answer to Norhan, I would say that start with the regional exhibitions, but visit first. I know that sounds like an unnecessary cost, but honestly, it will save you more money. If you go to an exhibition and spend 30 or 40,000 pounds on the exhibition, and you come away disappointed that you can't get back that return on investment, then that's a really bad thing. But if you go away and you spend 500, 600,000 pounds on going to an exhibition, come back again and are disappointed, then you've lost a few £100. But you've learnt about the exhibition, you've learnt that you shouldn't go there, you've learnt that maybe there's a better option. But generally, research the exhibitions, look at the big ones for your industry and for your products, and go and visit one. And if you visit one and you're impressed by it, exhibit at it. That's the way I would handle it.
Great, thank you, John. And hopefully that's a useful answer for everyone. A question in from Katherine, and it's one I'm interested in as well. So she says she generally has a 9 meter square stand and shows a video loop, but is asking about how you create viewing areas within the constraints of a small stand. So yeah, would you go about doing that?
I think that the only way to do that on a small stand is to, when you're doing your planning and your marketing and your advertising, advertise that the video is going to be showing at certain times of day, so 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever it may be, because then you'll get a group of people coming in to look specifically at that video. What you don't want is for people who are peripherally interested in your products standing on your stand looking at a video and getting in the way of people who really want to talk to you about your products. So the only way of dealing with a small stand is to have an invited audience at specific times of day. A little bit like, you see exhibitions where people say our demonstration on getting pizzas out of trays without leaving crust on them is going to be at 2 o'clock today. It's exactly the same principle as that. And that, again, I have to use the caveat that it doesn't apply in all industry sectors. You do have to be careful, and Katherine will know her business better than any of us will. I hope that's helped.
Great, thank you, John. A question from Sergio. Sergio's asking, how do you kind of figure out which shows to go to in Africa? But I'd like to broaden the question maybe a little bit. I know you showed a couple of links at the end, John, but kind of how do you find out about which trade shows work in the regions for your sector?
Well, I think again, it's too wide a question. Which trade shows do I go to in Africa? Africa is a massive continent, and so do you mean South Africa? Do you mean Namibia? Do you mean Morocco, Egypt? Define, because each of these countries have different industries, different levels of agriculture, different levels of affordability. The economies are good or bad or indifferent. So that's the first place to start is that economy going to be able to afford my products? We had a situation a few years ago where a company that I represent still, we were talking to a company in South Africa about representing our products there, but they couldn't afford them. So there's no point exhibiting them because they couldn't afford them. The second thing to think about is, do we have the technical certification that's going to allow us to exhibit? Because there's no point in going to an exhibition anyway unless you are technically able to supply that market. If you don't have the standards, then you won't sell a bean anyway. So all these things have to be done first. And actually looking at things like the EventsEye exhibition, you can click through to each individual exhibition there and have a look at the profile. Have a look at, are your competitors there? If your competitors there, there's a market. If your competitors aren't there, then you have to ask why they're not there. So that's a good rule of thumb. The second rule of thumb is it in a major city? Is that city a city that already buys my type of product? Do I have customers there? Have I had inquiries from there? Have I generated inquiries there? Because part of this deal, is not just about I'm going to an exhibition in Botswana. It's about what have I done to attract business from Botswana that would justify me to stage a trade show there. So again, it's a very wide question, but all of those little pointers will hopefully help the listeners to think about how they not just target the market, but how they communicate with the market in order to establish whether or not there is justifiability of spending all that money on a trade show.
Thank you, John. I mean, Sergio's come back and said it was Kenya he was looking at, but I guess once you've identified the market and you've done that bit of market research to see if there's an actual kind of demand for your product there, then would you then go to people like the chambers of bilateral chambers of commerce and your trade association just to kind of get starters for finding information about what shows are going on?
Well, I would do that, but it's a step back from that because you'd only do that if you had found that there were inquiries coming from those countries, or if there was another reason that was driving you towards that country. For example, if you're selling agricultural produce, there's no need really to go to Kenya because they produce a lot of agricultural produce themselves. If you want to buy from Kenya and buy agricultural produce from Kenya, then it's a perfect place to go. If you're wanting to develop the infrastructure of Kenya, maybe in terms of creating solar panels for mobile phones so they can be used in the outer reaches of the country, then that could be a good reason for going in there. But it's about research. You don't go anywhere. You don't walk into a new market and get business. You have to spend sometimes months and years researching those markets in order to get the answers that you want. And it gets to the point where you've got a lot of information and it's still fairly inconclusive, but you've got a gut feeling that tells you that actually you need to be going there. And I know that's a very vague answer for Sergey, but it is the answer I would give anybody. If in the end, after all your research, you have a feeling that you shouldn't go, don't go, find somewhere better. If you have a feeling that you should go, then get on a plane and visit an exhibition and do all the stuff that I talked about earlier. That's the sort of cost-effective way of finding whether you should spend another 30 or 40 or 50 grand on exhibiting your products in a particular location.
Thank you, John. And I'd also, for that particular question, I'd refer Sergio to our Africa webinar, which we did at the start of July. I'm going to do two more questions. They're both really good questions. So Joanne's asked again, should you evaluate a trade show on a return of investment achieved in the first year you go, or is this unrealistic?
If it's a capital machine, it probably is unrealistic. If you're selling fast-moving consumer goods, then if you're not returning something, if you're not paying for that show in a year, then there's something wrong. You've gone to the wrong show, you've done your research wrong, the market's taken a dive or something like that. So it does depend on the product, but it is a good question. And actually, it should be one of the parameters you use in, especially when you're putting a budget together for your business plan, for your company's business plan. You want to be saying to your board of directors, we want to go to this particular exhibition because we believe that although it'll cost us £30,000 to get everybody there and to do the exhibition for 4 days and come back again, we believe it will bring us about £300,000 of business. If you do that, please underestimate. If you've identified £300,000 worth of business, say 150,000, because then you go away, you get £30,000 to spend, and you still made 120 grand in a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever your return on investment period may be. I hope that
Great.
answers the question.
Yeah, thank you, John. And the last question is from Marina. I hope I said that right. And the question is, how do you nurture leads after the exhibition? Apart from following up with them after the meeting with a call, what other tips and tricks might help?
That's a brilliant question, because following up is something that not enough companies do. The reason they don't follow up is because they don't prepare properly in the first place. If you attract the right people to your exhibition, and if you've done all that preparation I talked about, all that communication beforehand, they come along to the exhibition, and that is like your close. They come along to the exhibition expecting to do some kind of business or to find out something more about the product so they can make more decisions. They go away from that exhibition, and if you haven't contacted them within a week, then you're going to lose that business, almost certainly. So there are a couple of tips there. First of all, make an appointment with them to call them. So they're sat there on your exhibition stand, you've had a great meeting, and they say, yes, we're very interested in taking this further. Then you either say, I'd like to come and see you next week, because they're in the same country. I'm going to be still in the market. I'd love to come and see your business next week so we can talk in more detail. They've only had 30 minutes with you after all, and you may need 3 or 4 hours to really talk about the nuts and bolts of what you want to achieve. So that's number one. Number two, they may not be available, or they may be in another country that you can't visit within your timetable. So say, I'd like to have a video conference with you. We've got the technology here in front of us that we're using right now to be able to have conference calls with people. And you've got to keep the pot boiling. And if it means 1, 2, 3 calls, 2 or 3 visits, then do so. I went to an exhibition in Atlanta once. It was actually the same fair where we had the problem with the machinery, but we had a company from South Carolina come on stand, and they were very, very interested. 7 visits to their factory later, we did a deal, and that was a process of 3.5 years. But it was a deal that got a £50,000 machine, and when they were happy with that, they ordered another 6. So that was pretty good. So there's no hard and fast rule about this other than do not lose the opportunity. I went to another company in the UK, and they called me in to help them with their international trade, and they said, what would you do with this lot? And they gave me a file full of exhibition inquiries from Germany 18 months before. And I said, put it in the bin, because you didn't show interest in them. Why should they show interest in you? And really, it's about the speed of your response. But again, let's go back to basics. You start with the good plan. The plan means that you communicate with your customers, you invite people to the stand, as many people as you can, and you use the UK consulate or embassy or high commission to help you in finding the customers to invite to your stand. It is cost effective. You should do that, and you should contact your DIT International Trade Advisor to set that ball rolling as soon as you possibly can, because it's really important to get people there. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. You might as well spend £50,000 on a big party somewhere. It's much more important that you prepare for your exhibition. And then when you have the meetings at the exhibition, you're a step towards the follow-up and a step towards business.
Great. Well, I think on that note, it's probably time for us now to wrap up. So thank you once again to John for the presentation and the answers. That was really, really useful. And I hope all of those who are going to trade show have found that useful, and the ones who aren't in the next few months, I hope that's encouraged you a little bit to look at the opportunities they present. So yeah, thank you, John.
It's a pleasure, and thank you everybody for listening. If you have any questions that follow on from this, then please do email Open to Export, who will liaise with me and other exhibition people who do exhibitions regularly anyway. Take care.
Great, thank you, John. Next slide, please. In terms of what the Institute of Export and International Trade is doing at the moment, some of you will know that the Incoterms rules that play a central role in international shipping, among other things, are changing next year. We will be running a series of training courses throughout the autumn and the winter to help you stay up to date with these changes, so we definitely recommend you have a look at those. The September enrolment for many of our courses, including those which can be taken as apprenticeships at reduced rates through the apprenticeship levy, is coming up fast. These are a great opportunity to upskill staff in extremely important global trade skills, so please do have a look at the site for more information about all of this. We are also running several Brexit-related training courses, including our post-Brexit planning workshops and a fair few customs declarations and documentary courses as well in the lead up to October 31st and beyond. So please do ensure you're looking at those to ensure you are prepared for the worst there. And finally, we've a new UK Customs Academy website has just gone live this week, providing professional customs support to those new to international trade through to seasoned professionals. You can find out more information about all of that on the Institute website and also at ukcustomsacademy.co.uk. Next, please. In terms of Open to Export, our next webinar will indeed be telling you more about the new Customs Academy on the morning of September 5th. Keep your eyes peeled for more information about that. And we also have webinars on the ASEAN region and managing risk in emerging markets throughout September too. You can find sign-up details at opentoexport.com/webinars. Next slide, please. Finally, we launched a new export action plan competition with Bibby Financial Services at the start of the month. This is a great opportunity for SMEs to win £3,000 towards their export plans. The deadline to enter is November 5th, ahead of a showcase final in Birmingham on November 28th. For more details, again, please go to the opentoexport.com website. That's all for today. As always, please take our exit survey to let us know what you thought of today's webinar and to give us any suggestions for improvements or future topics. But for now, thank you and goodbye.